Welcome to Midpoint, OCC's midweek podcast aimed at helping you connect with last week's message and prepare you for next week's sermon. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to Midpoint, your midweek connection to Orchards Community Church. Last week, Pastor James talked with us through the last week of our Advent series called Home for Christmas, where he walked us through the incredible truth that Jesus is the light of the world. Decent summary?
I think that's pretty incredible. Not my message so much as Jesus being the light of the world. Yes.
I think it's the one takeaway we really truly, we were kind of talking a little bit off of air here, and that is the one takeaway that hits us the most, is Jesus is the light of the world. And I think that's such an amazing truth. What did you have to take out due to time out of this message?
The one thing, Andrew, that I probably wish I could have spent a little more time, maybe should have spent more time talking about, the walking through John's gospel and the things that he dealt with, the things that he saw in his life, which was likely a very long life. Truly, for him to come up with God is love, and that love is the light of the world, when he had seen such incredible just chaos, calamity, those kind of things. And so I had it in there. I kind of threw it in as like, hey, don't we need to hear this message right now? Because we look at the world we live in and go, this thing is horrible. This is all turned upside down. But I didn't spend a lot of time there because truly it felt that depressing. It was like, let's not focus on the bleakness around us right now. But you don't have to work that hard to find it, And I mentioned this in the Monday night service, which we don't record typically. But it was just funny, because I got a refund from the hospital for an MRI on my knee to get ready for my knee surgery, and I'd paid too much. The insurance paid more, I guess, and so it was like a $93 check. It was a nice check.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
Instead of having to pay them
exactly,
to get back.
Yeah,
right?
Supposed the other way around. So, but I'm skeptical enough that I called the hospital. I was like, okay, is this really mine, or am I like I'm going to cash this and you're going to send me another bill? And so I was calling a check, and the lady was great in customer service, and she's like, no, that's yours. And I mean, she wasn't trying to be ironic, or I think she was like, now you can go fill up your gas tank.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's sad, but true. That's the world that we live in, And so just spending a whole lot of time sitting and talking about how horrible it is, with some of the things that are going on in the world, I don't know if that's helpful to even focus on that. So I could have spent more time there, but I felt like it was probably better to go with the biblical cases that John was seeing. So we pulled the punch there a little bit.
Gas is expensive.
That's probably going to be the title for this podcast. Wow, gas is expensive.
And I had a similar story. I had to go do a little medical procedure about a month ago, and went to go pay the hospital. A nice little bill, and all kinds of fun those. But I got on the phone. It was about a week ago. Got on the phone, and the lady goes, "Hey, it's Christmas season, and if you pay it all right now, we give you like 20% off."
Oh yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah." I'll pay all of it.
Where do I sign up?
Where do I sign? I want it all. So I guess there is some not so bleak, right?
God's good, and there are always things like that, but it seems like you got to work to find them anymore.
It was nice to get the money back, but it was also painful to pay the entire sum. It was like a give and take of like, ouch, but amazing. So anyway, I think we're going to keep this on the rails here. Each week, we like to take time to talk through questions that we receive from the congregation. And we love doing that. We love hearing from you. And please keep sending in your questions, because when you send in your questions, we have a chance to hear from you. We have a chance to answer your questions here on Midpoint and be able to truly connect with you so that we are speaking to what you're needing, what you're going through. And so please keep doing that. Please keep sending them in. And we'll talk about here at the end how you can do that. First question I have, you had a quote that I loved, and you made it one of your notes. You said, "Don't focus on what is happening, focus on what has already happened." Can you explain that quote and the heart behind it?
Yeah, and I was actually thinking about it when it ended up being one of the fill in the blanks on the outline. I don't know if I came up with that or not. I don't know if I stole that. I really can't remember. There's the great old story about, somebody always says, and then after a while you forget, and you're like I always say, and now that's become my thing. I don't honestly remember if I stole that. It sounds too creative to be something I came up with. But the point is, it's what John did. Mm-hmm. John had seen all the calamity, as we mentioned, and he didn't focus on that in his gospel account. Mm-hmm. Does he go into detail in some of the areas? Yes, he certainly does. If you want to study biblical history, you get the details on those things. But as John begins his gospel, he focuses on Jesus being the light of the world. And for a guy like John, who'd seen the things he did, to be able to come up with that kind of one-word description, God is love, That really, really is amazing when you think about it. So that's the deal. I think it takes a certain amount of intentionality for us to do that, to not get lost in the weeds, which is so easy to do. Probably easier at Christmas time than any other time because we have so many things going on and parties we need to go to and meals we need to prepare and gifts we need to buy and wrap and decorations, and it just gets so easy to get lost. So that's the whole idea. If we can eliminate those things or certainly move them to the periphery and say the thing I'm going to focus on at Christmas is Christ, I think we'd all be better off.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the idea that we often get so caught up in the immediacy of things, what's happening right in front of us, that we forget what Christ has done in the past and how he's still working. That's really good. And I think that's so applicable. So thank you for that. That's whether you said that or someone else did, we're going to give you the credit.
I'll take the credit today, but I don't think I deserve it.
Well, here's the thing. Sooner or later, someone else is going to quote that same thing and say, you know what, I got this quote from my pastor.
Like Pastor James said. So
we're just going to give it to you now, and we'll move on. It's okay. You said it, and we love the quote. It was a great quote. Next question I have. You had another quote. We're doing quotes today. I tried to pull quotes, and we had some quotes here. Another quote where you said, I am the problem that I can't solve. Can you unpack that a little further for us?
I think I actually did say that. I know I said that in a sermon a couple weeks ago, but it was that idea of the picture to me of saying, hey, I have these problem people in my life, and so what I want to do is just take them to Jesus and say, Jesus, fix them. And I don't think that's the way that's supposed to work. Because so much of the time, number one, it's not our job to save anybody. It's not our job to fix people. Most of the time, can we point people to Jesus? That's the whole goal for us. So I really want that to be more about the Proverbs, in Proverbs 3, where it says, don't trust in yourself, lean not on your own understanding, lean in on Christ. And so that's the deal to me. I want to say, hey, there's this person who is stressed or anxious or dispirited, whatever they're going through. Do I say, hey, God, fix them? Or do I say, hey, let me see them the way you see them? Train my eyes to see them the way you see them, and then maybe I can be part of the solution for them. That's fine, but I don't just immediately write them off because something's wrong with them. So I know that I'm the problem that I can't solve most of the time. I fail to see things the way God does. So that's the reminder there for me. And again, you've heard me probably say this before. Folks who've been part of this church for a long time, I've said this many, many times before. I don't truly try and preach sermons for any one person other than myself. Like I need to hear these things as much as anybody sitting out there needs to hear these things. So that one I was preaching to me, but I get it. I'm the problem that I can't solve. God can. Praise the Lord, and I'm still a work in progress.
I think what hit me with that quote is the reality that I often get in my own way so much. I am my own stumbling block.
Sure.
And I can cause the most issues for myself, but then I can also cause issues for others. And I think often where I struggle is wanting to look at God and say, you know what, God, whatever I'm struggling with right now, you've taken long enough. And now I'm going to sidestep you. I'm going to go around you, and then I become my biggest problem. And so I think that hit me of like, I can't solve, I am my biggest issue, and I need to go to Christ. And I need to allow him to solve me and to figure me out, but then I also need to lay others at his feet too. And so I thought that was a good challenge.
Yeah, good takeaway.
For sure. Next question. The challenge that often comes with this time of year is to not get lost in the craziness of the holiday and miss Christ. How do I truly make sure I don't miss Christ during Christmas?
That's a super good question, but it's such a personal question, because the reality is almost everybody I talk to has this problem. You get caught up in all the things that are going on, and many of those things are great. Many of those things are fun. I love putting up lights. I love decorating the house. Do I have those things in the right priority place? And so for me, in looking at that question, it's just intentionality. Are we doing something where we say, I'm going to make Christ the focus of this? We love decorating the house. I do probably more than anybody. I know more than Christina. She kind of puts up with decorating the house. She has a few things she likes, but she likes in January when things go back to normal too.
I was in your house the other day, and your tree is incredible.
Yeah, I really get fired up about the trees.
I walked in. I didn't say this to you, but I walked in. I was like, whoa, wow. Okay, yeah, I get it now.
We go a little overboard on the tree, so everybody's going to be rushing by my house this week. It's a nice tree.
You're gonna have people like peering through your window. Let me see.
So I'll try and post it on Facebook or something. The whole idea that we do, I love the decorations. We do an Advent candle that is the Christmas story, and it's really neat, and we've had it for a long time. And it's, magnets, and the kids, put the magnets on, and there's a verse in every day that tells part of the story.
Yeah.
And when they were young, all the boys would put the cows in the air and try and frustrate Macy, and she'd get so upset because she loves the animals. and she'd every day, we'd take turns, so she only got every fourth day, and so she'd come in and make it all right on the fourth day. And
That's amazing.
But that was something for us in the midst of all that to say, hey, we're going to take this time that we're doing the Advent. We do an Advent candle thing that we do where we read a devotional out of that. In that, are we going to redeem some of the things and not make everything, and I'm not trying to be weird, about Santa or presents or anything, and say we're going to make it about Christ at this time. Does it always work? I mean, dear goodness, it's hard to know how those things are going to land, but it's better than not doing anything at all. It's trying to be intentional. So that, to me, is the deal. I think every family can do that. Even if it's only, hey, the parents are Christ followers and the kids aren't, and you're like, well, we want to do something that's not going to, find one thing you can do that focuses on the true meaning of Christmas. I hear a lot of people who on Christmas Eve will sit together and read Luke 2 and read this. I think that's great. Find a way to make that something that you do each and every year.
With my family, when we are there for Christmas and growing up, my dad would do very similar, read Luke 2, but he would do it literally moments before we open presents.
Yeah.
And which is awesome and would remind us, but it would also be like the most anxious time of reading Luke 2 ever. You're like, my present is in my lap. I have it right now. I can probably figure out what it is, but let's read Luke 2 now. And
I appreciate your dad. That may not be the best time to read this story. I love your dad. He seems like a really good, discerning guy, but
that was, it like focused us, but it also was like, I want to open it. So it's been something that I have learned and taught myself. Slow down, take the time, focus, but it was also really hard.
Pick a best practice for each family. That's good.
Maybe not moments before presents,
that
though.
May not be the best one there. Sometimes you learn what not to do. It's okay.
Yeah, I greatly respect my dad with that, and greatly respect those that take the time to do those kind of things and focus. And I really have challenged youth and the college students of don't get lost. Don't get lost in so much. Don't get lost in the traveling. Don't get lost in this, the presents, the food, and how do we still focus? How do we still remember that Christ's birth is launching this incredible love story for us? And how do we remember that? And so I think there's such wisdom in making sure that we're focusing ourselves, enjoying things, because those things aren't wrong. The presents aren't wrong. The food, the family, the trips, those aren't bad things, but how do we make sure that we're not getting lost in those things, for sure? So, next question I have. You debunked the common Christmas phrase of Jesus is the reason for the season, and instead helped us understand that we are the reason for a season. How do we make sure we don't get prideful and think Christmas is all about us?
I think that's a neat question. At least kind of hints the idea if folks were paying attention. I'd spent 30 minutes saying Jesus is the reason for everything. It is, and I don't want to make it just about semantics, but you hear that Jesus is the reason for the season. He is the season. The reason for the season is exactly as the shepherd said in the Luke 2 story. He came for us. Unto us a son is born. Unto us a child is given. With all those things. And I even said in the sermon, if you remember, hey, I want to make sure we don't make this about us. This is still all about Jesus. But I understand the way we're wired. We're fallen people. We'll easily take something like that and run with it and try to make it about us. But the reason that the season is about us is because we're needy. It's because we need a Savior. And that's why it's about us. So there's really no room for us to brag in that whatsoever. It's still all about Jesus. But I do like that. And I don't remember, again, it's been years. I'm old. But I just got a Christmas card, and that's, it had just that little, hey, Jesus is the reason for the season. And as I was kind of unpacking it, I was like, I don't think that's actually true. And so, theologically, if you look at it, I feel real confident. I don't think I would have preached it otherwise. We are the reason for the Christmas season. We are the reason that God came in the form of the tiny little baby. But he is the reason for everything. So, there's just not a lot of room to pat ourselves on the back there. We're the reason for the season because we're desperate, because we're needy.
And you took us to, if I'm quoting this right, you took us to the moment of the angels where they said, it's good news of great joy for all mankind. And that idea that it's for us, and in many ways that makes us the reason for the season.
Sure.
But yet it's still good news of great joy because it's Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was interesting. That kind of like, when you said it, I was like, whoa, okay. And then you explained it, and I thought it was a wise thing to draw up here as well.
Sometimes you say things for the jarring effect you're going to get because it does fly in the
factor.
face. Yeah,
Yeah,
people are going to go, well, I've always heard this. Well, I don't know if that's the right thing to hear. So, yeah, that was intentional, but thanks for whoever submitted the question for picking up on it. That's a good thing.
No, I think that's such a great point to go through. So thank you for that. Before we end this episode, let's talk about next week. What are we going to be studying?
Next week, I am not going to be teaching. We'll have a Christmas Eve message during the service, and I'm very, very excited about that.
Yeah.
And then we've actually already filmed our Christmas Day message, and I just got a chance to watch that, and it's a very good depiction of the nativity scene and how that story plays out. But the podcast actually next week is going to be Wesley and Brenton kind of just sitting and recapping the year. Many of the things that have happened here at OCC, some of the stuff they're most excited about. There were big, huge changes on campus in both their respective ministries, literally a move for Wesley, a physical move on campus, and then a lot of upgrades in Brenton's area in worship. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And you get those guys in a room together, and that's normally pretty entertaining anyways.
All kinds of fun. Yes, all kinds of fun.
So that's what we'll be actually doing for the podcast next week. And when we pitched the idea, I was like, I'm listening to that. That's going to be really good.
So what can we as a church body be doing to prepare for this recorded video message on Christmas morning?
Well, and again, gosh, it's so many of the things we talked about even today. It's going to be Christmas Day. I mean, it launches at 9 o'clock Christmas morning. You can watch it anytime with your family. But a step of intentionality. Are you going to stop from opening presents, from doing your breakfast, from doing whatever, from preparing for the big lunch you're going to have, the meal, whatever, all those things, and say, hey, for 30 minutes, 35 minutes, it's not super long, can we sit down together as a family? Can we sit down and actually remember why we're celebrating in the first place, why we're even here, why we have the presents, why we have the meal? Because I think it should make those other things richer. Yeah. At least I pray they will. So if we're preparing our hearts for that, that will probably land better, I would imagine.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for that. And I think that's going to be good. And I'm excited for Orchards to be able to participate in that.
And I'm excited for folks to be able to, I mean, truly with the Christmas Eve is a long day for our volunteers, long day for staff, because we're here through the 3 services and a lot of things going on. So I'm actually excited, even though I would have loved to have been together on Christmas Day, to let families enjoy their family and not have the pressure of having to come to a service. So I hope they can make time to sit around the TV, around a computer, and watch that Christmas Day message.
And I think that's the heart behind the video recorded message, is to give time for families to be together,
Very
to
much
celebrate that time. And
Yeah,
so
very much so.
enjoy that time for sure. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. We hope you enjoyed this week's Midpoint. If you'd like to send in any questions, and we ask that you do that, or any thoughts that you have into the show, please email or text them to occpodcast@lewistonocc.org. We hope to see you all this Saturday for one of our Christmas Eve services. There'll be one at 3 p.m., 5 p.m., and 7 p.m. However, the 3 p.m. service is already full. So if you haven't registered yet for one, or haven't decided which one you're going to go to, please plan to attend the 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. Then on Christmas Day, there'll be no in-person services, as we mentioned. Please join us online at 9 a.m., or you can watch it anytime after 9 a.m. as well. Hope to see you all very soon. Be well, and know that you are so loved by God and Orchards Community Church. Merry Christmas to you all.
Merry Christmas. God bless.